Right, so let's see if I can create some nice flowers. Um, I am slightly apprehensive. I'm not the best at flowers, as I just said. So let's just see. I'm going to use a small little flat brush, a small stubby. I'm going to zoom in on just this one here. And I'm going to put the reference photograph just for that one up on the screen, because I find it easier just to zoom in and work on certain parts of a painting. It just allows you to see it better and forget about everything else. Okay, so let's just work on this one here. I'm going to start. I have my same colours out, a little bit of cadmium red as well. I don't think I need it, but look, I just put a bit out there on my palette, just in case. Let's start with creating just a basic shape of some of the petals. And I'm going to start with a very light kind of a greeny grey. So I'm going to just dampen my brush. I'm going to take some Naples yellow. I'm taking a touch of phaylo blue, some white, and this needs to be very bright now as well. A little touch of black. I know when you look at the photograph, you may look at individual colours and think it's just a soft grey. It's a tricky colour to mix because you're seeing all the lights and darks together. So it can be difficult to differentiate the different colours, but I want to keep it a kind of a greeny hue, not very green, just even maybe a touch of blue. I want to just keep it that kind of a colour, because it means the colours are bouncing off of the flowers, the greens. They're bouncing off of the flowers. And I'm not going for a photographic copy with this now, okay? No way, no photographs. No photographs in my paintings. I just want to create a nice little impression. I might add a touch of burnt umber actually, just a touch. Just to dull it down slightly. But look, I don't want photographic paintings. I just want a nice impression, basically. That's probably the best way to say it. A nice little impression. I'm going to just kind of fill in excuse me. I just want to fill in where the darks, some of the darks are. And this may be a little tricky. I'm fooling around with my colours now at the moment. I'm sort of picking up little touches of blue and little touches of black, just to try and get a nice even shade, something similar. And when we go to put the lights in later, they're really going to bounce around on the canvas. Just take a bit of blue actually in that. Look, let's go for a little touch of blue in that. I think most of this flower is almost in shade. There's very little kind of light hitting this flower, these petals, if you know what I mean. There's just a little hint of it here and there, but it seems for the most part to be in shade, doesn't it? So I'm just kind of bearing that in mind now as I paint. Take a little touch more blue, maybe a touch of magenta, the tiniest little touch. I'm just really kind of trying to focus on getting a nice shade. I want to get a nice soft kind of a shade. I don't think that's bad, that colour, the colour. I'm thinking about colour now, not shapes or anything like that. I'm not worried about the shapes of the petals and all that kind of stuff. I'm just thinking about the colour. And I don't think that's too bad for now. And maybe mix a touch of a kind of a pinkly purpley colour. And I might just add a little touch of that up in that side. And this is something you can really just enjoy and take your time with. A little bit more, a kind of a bluey shade up here. And it's really, do you know what now? It's very, very subtle, these colours. Very, very subtle. A little bit there. I'll pop a little bit of that kind of a bluey colour in there. And what this is going to do by adding hints of these colours is going to kind of bounce off of the background because we have similar shades. So it's really going to sort of bounce off of the background to and from. I'm just going to round this one a little bit more. And again, they don't have to be exactly the same as what you're painting. All I want is a nice little representation of this flower. That's really all I want. I beg your pardon, I have a bit of a cough this morning. I'm going to take a bit of a greeny grey, touch of black. You can kind of see the process. I'm picking up little touches of colour here and there and just popping them in. If you see a dark, put in a dark. If you see a light, put in a light. And it should kind of come together at the end. I'm just going to keep working on this for now, just popping these in, softening them as I go. I have, I think, the basic kind of shades that I want in there. I might just take some darker colours now. Just going to take a little bit of black and a touch of cadmium yellow and a touch of phaylo blue. I'm going to put some quite dark shades now, and this background now is almost completely dry. I finished it yesterday, part 1. It's pretty much dry. Look, I can rub it. It's fine. So I can lean on the canvas slightly. It's absolutely fine. I just want to get in some of the darker outlines. You see those kind of outlines that we have there? They kind of disappear off, don't they? For me, I suppose it's all about, especially painting flowers. I'm not great at flowers, but I would say it's about softening your brush strokes in. Creating nice soft shades like that. You see what I mean? I'm just kind of softening them down gently. Just creating little indentations on the petals. And that seems to be working quite well. A little one here. I'm trying to show the shadow of the petal as it's turning. Does that make sense? I think that's what will make the painting kind of come to life. I'm going to darken down here as well. A lot of this is in darkening, quite dark down here actually. And being oils, it's so nice that you can soften colours in together. It really makes a big difference, I must say. It makes a huge difference. If I was using acrylics, I would be slightly worried about colours going hard and drying on the canvas and not being able to soften colours together. And that's why I left acrylics, because I just found it too frustrating to try and soften colours together. Do you understand what I mean? And it was really starting to annoy me to the point where I just couldn't blend properly, and I got very annoyed. I just put them away and I bought some oil paints, and that was a long time ago. That was a couple of years back. So I kind of decided on oils because they're just much more flexible, I think. They give you a lot more flexibility, especially painting stuff like this, flowers and that kind of thing. Now I'm just going to mix a little magenta in with the colour I just mixed, which is a bit of blue and black, black and magenta. And I just want to bounce a little bit of a pinky shade from the underside of the flower. And these brush strokes I'm putting in now are quite kind of thick brush strokes. I'll go in with the final very strong brush strokes later. But for now, I'm just focusing on getting some of the shapes in. And I know now you think that doesn't look right, it looks a little bit funny. Yes, it does. But I don't mind. I really don't. So, okay. As long as you're happy, that's all that matters. It doesn't matter if your artwork doesn't look exactly like what you're painting. As long as you think it looks okay and you're happy with it, it's fine. Go for it. Don't be worried. And I'll tend to kind of put in the lights later. That's generally how I kind of tend to work. So, for example, I'm going to separate the petal here now. I'm just going to separate these petals ever so slightly. Put in some darks from this petal. And I'm putting the lights. I start working now on my lights. I'm going to clean my brush. And this is where hopefully it should kind of come to life and spring to life. Just a little. And as I said, I will put in more darks with my pointy brush later, but I just want to right now focus on hitting this with some nice brights. I'm going to get some titanium white and Naples yellow. It may not be exactly the same, but it's just a nice soft colour. It's like a soft cream. I know it probably looks a little bit more white on the photograph, but I don't want to go too bright just yet. I want to start with a soft colour. So a little bit of Naples yellow and some white, and I have a touch of that greeny colour in my brush, a touch. So it's kind of went like this dull white. Do you understand? I hope you can see that. It's kind of turned into this sort of a dull white colour. And we will have to go over this a few times because you can see it's going to start mixing into the colours I have already. There's a lovely artist online. If you're a flower painter, there's a lovely artist online. His name is Gary Jenkins, I think it is. He paints the most beautiful flowers so easily, just with single brush strokes, just like this. So he puts a brush stroke in like that and he leaves it. And he paints the most beautiful flowers. I'd say a couple of you probably know who I'm talking about. But he does the most wonderful flowered paintings. And he just kind of puts in single brush strokes like that. It's amazing what he does. So I try to get my inspiration for flower painting from this artist by just putting in single brush strokes very loosely. And I'm going to go and start refining some shapes like that. So that kind of edge of that petal there. And we have some nice lights hitting this one here as well. And for me, this type of painting really, it's about catching the lights very sort of sharply. I hope that makes sense. So, in other words, pretty much putting on a brush stroke, a solid thick brush stroke, and sort of just leaving it. Does that make sense to you? So something like that, you see, just catching some of the edges as if the light is just catching some of them. And look, as I said earlier, I don't want this to look exactly like the photograph, but I will add some nice little details very shortly. Some nice details with the pointy brush. Get some of those dark lines, those rich dark lines in. But I just want to sort of brighten it now just a bit. Here and there. And I'm cleaning my brush after each 2 or 3 brush strokes because it will pick up the darks and start getting quite kind of dirty and messy. And I might just add a little hint of light up here as well. And perhaps touch down at the bottom here. So I'm just going to soften some of these in. My main concern is that I have kind of separated some of the petals. So we have 1, 2, 3 petals and another small one coming out down here. That's my main concern. I'm going to perhaps get a small brush now, a small round brush, not a very small round brush, something like this. And I want to just create the piece just in under the flower here. I'm going to get some dark colour, some dark green. I'm going to go with some cadmium yellow, phaylo blue, and a little thinners just to make it move around. A touch of black. And I just want to go in here and create this lovely area in here. Then I go for a very small detailed brush, very small pointy brush. Dampen that a little, make sure it's nice and soft. I get some black in with that green. And I'm just going to add little touches of detail. Like so. Another one coming up at the back, like that. And the most important part here, is, I suppose, is softening that blacky colour in to the green, okay? I'd say that's probably the important section. You see what I mean? Just softening that kind of little bit of black in there. I put another little piece like that. And maybe another one just here like that. Just to show these little points popping out here and there. A little touch of very dark black then. Like so. Now after that, clean my brush. I'm then going to do the opposite and go in with a nice bright yellow. And just hit little points of this with some bright yellow. Does that make a little sense? I hope it does. I'm going to also soften that kind of nice warm kind of a green. I just want to soften some of that into the flower itself. It's only a very slight suggestion of a greeny colour going into the leaves. I need a little bit more blue in that. It needs to be a bit more on the green side. Just take your time, mix your colours nice and slowly, there's no rush. It's just really what happens is the colour, the light filters through the petals and it transfers some of the colours onto the petals, if you know what I mean. So it makes them almost like, if you can imagine that they're see-through and you can see some of the colours going through onto the petals. Okay, now let's get some of this darker colour again and just bring out. In fact, I'm going to mix a nice green. I need to go for a very rich green. There, I think that's a bit better. And then a little bit of black, just to finish off underneath here. I just wanted to really show those little points coming down there, down onto the stalk. Okay, let's stop at that. I think I'll move on to this flower. I'm going to leave that. I can come back and do details later on that. I just want to get this next one filled in. And we can have a bit of fun with this one, I think. I might go to a slightly bigger brush for this, just to fill this in a little bit quicker. And it does save on time. So I'll fill most of this in now with my medium stubby brush. Let's get some of that colour. Let's take white. I'm going to go for a soft grey, I think, a soft mauve. White, some blue, a little touch of magenta, and a touch of black, perhaps. A very soft, kind of a mauve-y shade I can see in there. It's a lovely colour, but I think I need to go a little bit dark on this. So let's mix up a nice dark shade of mauve, a very dull kind of a mauve. Not a warm shade, but a cool shade of mauve. I think that's what we need. That's a bit better. I'm just going to pop in most of where I can see the darks on this flower. Okay, we have a nice kind of set of darks that come down here like this. We have another one over here. The very important thing about painting flowers and petals is to follow the direction of where they're going. I find that's very, very important when painting, because it shows you some direction. You see what I mean? So I'm kind of flicking them in the direction that they're going. I think that's very important, because you need to be able to show which way they're going. I'm just going to put a little bit more of a bluey shade down here, like that. Pop a little bit up there, and I can put a little bit in here as well. So I've that done. I'm then going to go on to some of the lighter shades. I go back to my small flat stubby brush. Just make sure it's nice and clean. Let's get some Naples yellow, some titanium white, lots of that. And I might actually even go for a touch of cadmium yellow as well. Tiniest touch. Now this is a bit more, this is probably a bit more on the creamy yellowy side of white. Let's just try it and see. So we have a lovely set of petals coming down here. I'm just going to fill those in very, very kind of loosely. Now I don't have this on the reference photograph here, so I'm just going to cut off that stem, go in front of that, and then I'm going to work my way up slightly, and I want to sort of bring these down and soften them down into that darker colour. Okay. Up here as well, I'm going to kind of catch that, bring it down. Just flicking them through, and there's little touches of colour kind of hitting here and there as well. So the light is sort of coming across the top and catching the top edges. Does that make sense? One or two as well. We just refine one or two up here. And there's one or two little touches of light catching in the middle as well. Now I want to create a lovely shape where the shade is catching the flower. So I'm going to come down at an angle like that. There's a little bit of kind of a shadow catching some part of the flower petal just there. And coming back, mixing more colour. And I come over here. You have to keep cleaning your brush when you're doing this because you're picking up those dark colours each time. Each time you're doing this. So do keep your brush nice and clean. I come, let's see, now I come down here like this perhaps. Bring one in like that. Clean the brush again. And it does really help if you keep your brush clean in between colours. It just makes a huge difference. It makes all the difference really. I'm going to go with a nice big one coming in like this. And just work your way down. And try to, I suppose, imagine keeping it simple. That's what I would say. Just try to imagine keeping it simple. Now go back into some white, and we have a lovely piece in there, and we have that kind of turns around, doesn't it? This comes right around lovely, like that. Nice little light catching there. These ones at the front, I'm going to bring this up here actually, just a bit. And I'm going to add a couple of pieces in there. This section, I'm just going to go straight across like that and bring them in. So I have kind of, you could say, the basis of the flowers sort of, filled in. It's time now to kind of start worrying about details. I'm going to just start putting this little centerpiece in here. I think if I can get that in and work from there out, I'll be okay. So I'm going to take some cadmium red and some cadmium yellow. I think I'll just start with that color and I'll fill this in. Like so. At least then I have a reference point, you see. I have something to work out from, outwards. Get some naples yellow and some of that cadmium yellow color. And a touch of that green. I'm going to put a very slight kind of a warm green out into the petals. Just slightly here and there. Just that hint. Then with a nice dark colour, add a bit of blue to that. And a little bit of black. I'm trying my best now to replicate the colours I can see. It's quite difficult. but I'm trying my best to replicate what I can see in the photograph. It's probably completely wrong from your point of view. Maybe it looks completely different, I don't know, but I'm just kind of adding a little touch of colour in here and there. Now I'm going to just grab a fan brush, and I'm just going to very gently soften some of that colour outwards. Maybe even soften down some of those petals as well. Okay. Then I will go put more of this nice rich colour in here. I'm taking a bit of red and a little bit of burnt umber, and I'm just literally going to dab some of that in around here. And because there's a shadow in there, I'm going to just really go dark at the top side. So I'm going to go a little bit of black with that, just here and there, dabbing it through, creating a bit of a shade up there, a bit of a shadow. Like so. And then down on the opposite side, I'm going to take some cadmium yellow with Naples yellow and just start popping in some of that. Now that's a bit bright. Let me get some nice cadmium yellow on my brush. I'm going to pop that cadmium yellow in down here. And I'll take a nice dark, perhaps a kind of a blacky green colour. And I'm going to go just around down the ends, as if this is in underneath all of this. I'm really taking my time on this. I know I'm probably taking a lot longer than you would like, but I'm really trying to kind of copy what I can see and get it nice. I just want it nice, I really do. So I'm just trying to, for example here, just trying to replicate that bit of a shadow like that. And these lovely shadows down here, they're really nice, aren't they? So already, yeah, it's starting to come to life a little bit. After this, it's pretty much really lots of detail. You can go kind of quickly at it if you like. But for something like this, I do like to take my time, I must say. Some people would like to do this in one single brush stroke and really take their time. But I don't know, I like sometimes, now it could be a bad way of painting, might not be the best way of painting flowers. I like to kind of take my time with the details like this. It's just the way I've kind of taught myself, really. Take a little bit of green. I'm going to pop a little bit of green as well into that shade just down there. And I want to create the curvature of these petals just down here. And the ones at the front as well. It's kind of very difficult, isn't it, to show a petal turned in on itself. That can be quite difficult, I think. That's what I struggle with, especially with flowers. Trying to make a petal look like it's sort of turning in on itself. I find that very difficult to do. Some of you out there may know easier ways of doing it. I just find it very difficult to get it right. It takes a lot of practice, doesn't it? Painting flowers, a huge amount of practice to get them just right. And as I said, it's not something I am very, very good at, I admit. You know, we have to admit our failures as well if we're not good at doing something. No harm to admit it, but I think it's good to try. Um, it it's good to have a challenge, I think. I like to have a challenge. It really opens the mind up. For me, it does. It really opens the mind up to try different things and learn different things as well. I'm just going to fill in up here, try and get some little bit more shape with the shadows, try and create a bit more suggestion of shadows being kind of caught down on one side from a petal or something. Okay, let me stand back and take a look at this. Yeah, we're kind of going along. We're still in the early stages, I admit. It's very early days. We're very, very early days with all of this. Okay. So I think I'll move up and do some detail on the next flower above. Then I'm going to kind of finish off with some very bright highlights on all of these with a thicker brush, a big, big brush. That's my plan. I hope it goes according to my plan. But that's the plan, and we'll see if it works. I just want to create some of these dark ridges in some of the petals. There's a couple up here like that. It's all just very subtle, really, isn't it? And it's quite difficult because even though you may think you're looking at the photograph and you're painting exactly what you see, sometimes it still doesn't look like what you're painting. That's the tricky thing about painting, I find. So you may look at all the shapes and copy everything exactly, and it still may not look like what you're painting. And that's when you start to get frustrated because you think to yourself, what am I doing wrong? I'm doing something wrong. It's just not looking like a flower or a tree or whatever, something like that. That can become very, very frustrating sometimes. What I say to people is try not to have a goal to make it look exactly like what you're painting. Try not to have that goal in your mind. Try to have the goal whereby, okay, I'm going to paint this. If it looks somewhat similar to the flower I'm painting, I'm happy. If it doesn't, I just keep at it but for the most part, I'll be happy enough if it just looks even remotely similar to what I'm painting. Now, what I'm going to do is, where is my fan brush? I keep misplacing my fan brush. Oh yeah, it's right next to me. I'm just going to soften some of these out now. I just want to soften them away just a little before I start really putting on some very bright colours. Because after all, the whole point of this painting is the brightness of the flowers catching your eye, isn't it? So it's the brightness of the flowers against the dark background. That for me is the point of the painting. The whole point. So I'm just going to stop at that now for a moment, stand back and take a look at what we're doing. So let's just add some final lights to all of these flowers, these lovely petals. I want to really hit these with some nice bright whitey highlights. So I'm going to take some titanium white and I'm thinking just a touch of cadmium yellow. That will give us some really bright, very, very bright whitey highlights. Now, I'll be very careful with cadmium yellow, just a touch. Just a tiny touch of cadmium yellow, loads of white. And that'll give us a really bright, sunlit kind of a white. All right, let's try it. Let's try it and see. No thinners in this whatsoever. I'm going to use my small stubby brush, and I may have to go to a small pointy brush as well. But look, let's see. Okay, let's just catch some of these with some bright, like that, okay? Just some bright highlights like that. We have a couple of nice big ones coming down like that. I'm softening them in as I go. Softening them down. Just wipe off the excess dark colour you have on your brush, just to keep it nice and clean. Especially around the front here, you see these nice brights we have. Like that. So the light is just catching some of them, just along the edges. So this is a lot of fun. I must say, I have really enjoyed painting this. It's been a lot of fun and it's been enlightening, let's say. Learning different little techniques. And if you feel that some of the darks are a little bit too dark, could just lighten them a little, like that. Just kind of add a little bit of white, yellowy white into them. I'm going to bring a very bright one now just down here like that. And I keep cleaning my brush almost after each brush stroke. Notice the way I'm turning the petal as well as it goes in. Now I'll clean my brush and just start again, because the brush does start to get a little kind of dirty after a while, so it's a good idea to just keep cleaning your brush. With this one over here, I'm going to turn this and come back like so. And really, I suppose it's all about catching the shape of the petals. Just the front, you see that? Just front kind of where it just pops in. You can go as far as you like with this in terms of detail. You can go as far as you like, but I tend to avoid going too far with details. I prefer to just keep it simple. A simple impression, I think, for me, it just works better. Just for me, I think a simple impression is much nicer. I catch just this one and maybe a little there as well, just to lighten it ever so slightly. Now go back into more. There's a very bright whitey highlight on these petals here, so I want to really define these ones, they're very, very bright, aren't they? Another one coming down like that, and one coming in. Now that's a real nice bright there, isn't it? Okay, take some more, and I'm going to go up just another little bit into that, and I'm going to just sort of catch one or two up here, just the one or two, real bright whitey highlights. Little touch of that yellow just really helps. We have a little bit of a one coming down like that, and another little piece. I'm just going to kind of lighten to create the direction of a shadow on that side. Like that. Yeah, it's, look, you can take from it what you want, but in general, they're just very, very subtle, you see? Now I'm moving up to the top one, because the longer you spend doing things like this, the more you end up changing the painting, and I don't want to do that. I don't want to end up changing the entire painting. So I'm being very careful. I don't want to overdo this. See, just a little touches here and there. I know this one is a bit darker in general, but I think just catching some of them in a little bit more light will help. I do think so. Maybe just one or two up there, softening them down. And my friends, I think I'm going to leave it at that. I'll take my small pointy brush and perhaps just add a few finer little details here and there. Just to really kind of help some of them pop that little bit more. Around here especially, there are lots and lots, and you can add extra little darks as well if you like. But again, just be careful. Be very, very careful. Try not to overdo this stage. And I come up here then, I'm going to add a couple of nice little brights just here and there. Just to get some of the shapes of the ridges on some of the petals. I am going to take a little soft blue and add just a few little bits of a soft kind of a blue in around here. A little bit dark there now, just a little bit lighter. Like that. I think finally I'm just going to add a couple of deep purples into some of this. Just to give a little bit more depth in some of those shadows, all right? Just a little. And I think it will help. And of course, this may be a little trickier because you're working sort of wet into wet. But just take your time, that's all. That's all you have to do. Take your time with all of this, my friends. Just go nice and easy. And look, finally, without overdoing all of this, I'm just going to take some cadmium yellow and I'm going to add a couple of dots of cadmium yellow just here and there, just to brighten up some points of interest. So around here, for example, a little bit there. You could even add a little bit of light to some of these, just to suggest that they're kind of going up and catching that light. The light is hitting them just here and there. And it doesn't have to be any particular direction or anything like that, but just to show that there's a little bit of colour here and there. You see what I mean? It's just tiny, tiny little notches of colour and a little bit of burnt umber then, just in around the back of this one here. And I might just add a little warm yellow to some of this, just to encourage the light to rest on some parts of that, just tiny, tiny amounts. And I think we're done. Perhaps one or two small, tiny, tiny little details. Like so, and one or two up here. Just in under that, perhaps just at the back of that. And I'm going to leave it, my friends. We are done. Thank you so much for watching. I do apologise if this did take much longer than expected. I do apologise, but you know, sometimes you can get carried away with details, especially at this stage. It's very easy to get carried away and put in lots of little details. So I'm going to, I think, just leave it, because I could be here for another 2 hours messing with this, and there's a risk I could just ruin the entire thing. So I leave it at that, my friends. Thank you so much. I hope you've enjoyed it. Let me see if I can turn this camera here now. There we go. I hope you've had fun. I hope you've learned a little bit. I've learned a few little things. I'm happy. I'm very happy with that. Stay tuned for more videos just like this, and let me know what you think. Thank you so much for your support on Patreon. I sincerely appreciate that. And I will see you very, very soon for another, perhaps a landscape next. I'm thinking a cottage. I love a little close-up cottage. So I will see you very soon. Thank you for watching, sincerely, and happy painting. I'll see you again. Take care.